So let's continue. So for problems with our software for streaming our screen. So let's continue. So for now we don't have any authors and any books in our database. It's just an empty database, and we will try to delete all data from the tables book, and we'll try to create before creating a book. Let's create one author or several authors. Let it be the let's import after also normal email is required waiting default. Okay. Let's create authors equals to 4i in range. For instance, we have authors, and we'll try to create a new object of author with our name, which will be author and our ID. Name and email. Email for author. Email equals to author ID gmail.com, and waiting let it be the let it be 0 for now. So we have just created an array of objects of authors class, and to send only one request to create these authors, we can use option from ORM called bulk create. Bulk create, it will get just one argument. It's a required argument. It's just an array of objects that those objects which we are trying to create in our database. So after this, let's loop after objects loop through all of our authors and try to add for each of them by 5 books. And here we want to set author equals to our author from here, and we are going to add for each author 5 books, and the price will be random between these numbers. And here we want to message our successful created objects. So let's check again. So let's check number. So let's run this command, and it says book 1 through 1 until 15 means for each author. We already created. Like if you open authors table, we have authors here, and if you open the book table, it will show the books with your authors. For each author, we have the 5 books, starting from the 0 and so on. So like this, you can option. So for now, let's delete. Let's create this function here, create authors number. By default, it will be 3, and let's copy these lines to here and here will be the num. And let's delete this one from the table. Create afters equal to 3 for now, and let's comment it because we want to work with our book table. So using this functionality, you can create and manipulate for creating a new object of afters. So now let's delete this for also because we already have afters, and we have afters with ID from 1 to 6. So sorry, from 1 to 3, and we have options here, for instance, ID equals to 1, and so on. So like this, you can create different management comments for creating different tables and manipulating the data between in these tables. So from the slides, we are saying that we can have the several arguments here. If you open our base class, it's a base comment, here we have the function called add arguments. Entry point for subclasses command to add the custom arguments. So when we are running this command, we can have the options and arguments for this file. In our case, it's a book grade. One of the optional fields in our base command, it's a help variable. It's a metadata which will just tell the message for what this command was created. Create fake data for book table. It's just a message which will show when we have some messages from our terminal. So we are saying that we have a function called add arguments, which is also empty here, but it's not required for the child. That's why we can run here without any this function. But for now, let's create and override the function from the parent class. It's called add arguments. Add arguments, and we are saying that the most useful arguments will be in the 3 types. The first one, require arguments. So for now, let's delete all of these afters. And as in our model, we set a cascade. That's why it will return all the books from the table. We'll have only one after here and 5 books for this after. For our after, we'll have 5 books. So we'll work with the after 1. So this number, which is a 5, we are setting in our code. And we can option to give a given possibility to set this number from the terminal for our users. For now, we will use these arguments to implement this functionality. For this, you have to use parser, the parser class which will add the arguments, add argument, and here we have the name of our argument. For instance, total. Let it be the name will be total, and let's type the type in the add argument function. We have several options, several arguments, name, and the second one is type. Let it be integer, and the help, which is also optional, which will show the number of books for creation. And this argument will be as a first option, as the first type, which is a required argument. After adding this function and this line of code, if you try to run your command again, it will show the error. It says that book create error. The following arguments are required, and it shows the total. So here we have the error for now. If you run like your name of your comment and minus h, or in the other case minus help, it will show the information about your comment. Same as built-in comments. If you go to the top, the first message, it's our help variable. It's a create fake data from our book table. And the positional arguments. Positional arguments, in other words, it's just a required arguments. It's a name, it's a total, and our help message, which will give the information, says that the number of books for creation and other optional arguments. And we have the second type, it's the optional argument. These optional arguments by default already exist in our base comment class. That's why it's a version of your comment and so on. But here we want to know about the total. So how can we get this number from the command line? Let's comment these lines for now. And so std_out, write all our arguments. For instance, let it be 10 for now. All our arguments will be in our quarks variable, which we are setting from the command line. So that's why from quarks we want to take a total variable. It's the name of our key. This number, which we are trying to send to our file, which will be name will be the same as in our add arguments option. So the message will be arg from command line, and let's show. So let's change this for 2 brackets. And from quarks we are trying to get the total, because it's a required argument. That's why we can use the square brackets. If it's optional, you have to use it using the function get. So let's check it and run this command, and it says argument from command line equals to 10. So we get this argument, and it's just an integer. So this number, for instance, total, it would be total also here. Total equals to quarks total. And for now, before creating of objects, when we are starting comments, let's delete all data from the database, all books, to see our numbers and connect and group it. So here we want to use total. In our comment we are saying that create book, and we want to create 10 objects of the book class, and it will run, and it have to create 10 objects from the database. If you open, and we have here 10 objects. 10 objects in our database, and let's open our admin. Ordering, let it be by ID. If you comment this, it should restart versus server. ID. Okay. From 16 to till 25, we have 10 objects in our database. So, and our prices are random. Let's continue. Let's see in the first option, which is required argument. So we said about the optional arguments. Let's add to our parser, add argument, and we can have optional arguments. To create optional arguments, as you can see from the messages, and this one optional, the version also optional, and so on. Let's create optional argument for the name of our books. Let it be -p, and the second argument is a minus prefix. We want to add the optional argument to set the prefix to our names of the new created objects. In our case, it's a new books. And type will be string, and help method prefix string for new objects, for new books in our case. And after adding this argument, if you try to open help for your command, it will show the position argument as before total, and in our optional arguments we have new option, and over here -p or minus prefix. So prefix string for new books, which is a help message. So let's check this message also. So string right from quarks, we want to get prefix. This is the name of our variable. It's a prefix. Let's check it. Then it's a required argument, that's why I will send the 10 as a total. And for sending optional arguments, the order might be as randomly. That's why I want to, I have to set that I'm sending the prefix. We can have two options, -p or minus prefix. Let's use the -p and base book. Let it be bb. It's our prefix. Let's run our command, and it shows bb, and this command works correctly. So prefix equals to let it be. Let's try to get prefix. If someone sends without prefix, we are just setting the AA as a prefix. So let's open our lines for creating a new objects. And for our name, we want to set prefix from the command line. Prefix, book, and ID. So let's try to run our command, and it will create our objects. If you refresh the database, we have books with our prefix, and this is an optional field. If you remove this one and try to create again books, it will get our default. So it will prefix. If it's optional, it will just remove. It will just remove the. It will try. If not prefix. Prefix equals to AA. Let's try this one. Check it. So here, if we don't have the prefix, we are setting that prefix will be AA. So this is second example for creating an argument. The last one is flag. Flag means we can have arguments which are stored in the as a value Boolean arguments. If you remember, you can have the options like you want to run this command using the user mode and so on in the Linux systems. This argument will be the same. So, for instance, let's be name, price, and after. In our book, authors also so let's set the e value here and let's create as an example x value as a boolean. If this boolean will be sent, we will create a book with the price, for instance, 10,000 as example. And here we have additional argument which called action. In action we have two options: store true or store false. If you set store true and type let's keep type and help. Let's help. Create book with expensive price. If someone sends this argument as a when running our command, it will get this argument. Let's get this argument from Quarks. Expensive, this value will be true or false. It depends on how we are running our command. And while our creation, let's check if it's expensive. We'll create like this. In our other case, we'll create same as before. If it's expensive, let's create a book like this. So expensive value will be true or false. Let's run our command. We are saying that create book, for instance, 5 books, and if you run like this, expensive value action stores by default it is false. If you send this message, it will create, and the values are randomly created, which says that expensive value equals to false. If you run this command with our option, in our case it's X or E, it should create books with the expensive value. In our case it's how many? This number, then 10,100. So expensive value will be true or false. If you set here like a true, by default, if you don't send this argument, this value will be false. If you set this argument, this value will be equal to true. And you can option to create options to create books like this. So, and these are our arguments options. And here we are showing that we can have the styles. We can add the styles to our management commands. For instance, let's create 10 objects, 10 objects, and let's create another command which called book delete, and remove these lines. Delete book objects from table. Book table, and here we want to show another type of arguments. Let's put empty for now, and here we want to show the, in our case it's book delete, let's check it. And it works. For now we want to add argument. Add argument, and it will be book ID, for instance, book ID, and number of arguments, and here we are saying we can have several options. One of them is plus, just plus. It means we can have several number of arguments, and type, for instance, it will be the integer, and help message, which is book IDs for delete. So let's get these arguments from Quarks. Book ID. Let's show them. Just print them. For delete, and this argument says we can have not one variable, for instance, 1. We can have several arguments from 1 to 5, for instance. This objects ends with add argument, number of arguments, integer. This is book ID. Let's see. So we have parser add arguments. It's just a name. For instance, book IDs, and n arguments equals to plus, and it will show n arguments and book IDs for delete. Delete. Maybe just to print it. Oh, okay. So in our case, we can have several arguments from the command line, and we can work with these items. What we want to do here is we want to book ID, we want to loop from our quarks and book IDs. And here we want to try accept, because we are trying to get one object from the database. Book objects get, not create, just a get, and ID equals to book ID. We want to delete these items, in our case all books with the ID 1, 2, 3, 5. So here will be just a message like self output write book ID does not exist, and here we will try to get this book, and if we have this book we will delete this one and show another message: was deleted successfully. We have two messages. If we can find this ID from the database, we will delete this item and we will show this message. Otherwise, we will show the message that we don't have any book with this ID. Let's try to run the same command as before. And it says we don't have any IDs, any books with this ID. We have these books in our database, for instance, 66 and 67. The last one will be 66 and 67. And run it again, and it says the first two options don't have, and the second one is, and the third one and the first one was deleted successfully. And we can see the changes here. And in this slide we want to, and we are trying to show the styles for our messages. So we have the object called style in our base command, and in the style variable we can have several types of the styling messages. Let's put here self style. If we can delete, it would be success message. Let's copy this one. If style doesn't exist, it will be the error message. And let's remove the 68 and 69 here and try to run, and it will show these messages. The red ones like errors or warnings, and the other ones successfully executed commands. And here we deleted these ones. So like this, you can have the several types of styles in your management command. So the first usage these commands for creating and manipulating this data to in our database, and the second one for, as we said before, for periodic tasks. This command, it's just a Linux system cron tab manipulation. We can have 5 options here, which start from the hours, the first star for hours, the second for months, the third one for days of month, the fourth one for months, the last one for day of weeks. We are configuring our cron tab to do some message, to do some task periodically. And we are saying that from this configuration, it says if it's 0 and 3, it says every day you'll have Example of execute the report every day at 3 a.m. Here we have 3, if it's 0 hours, and so we have to swap these numbers. Here we have minutes, and here we have hours. 3 hours and 0 minutes. And if it's other fields, if they are just leave the like star, it will get the all days, all months, and all day of weeks. So this command will be executed every day at 3 a.m. And here we say that path to our Python, which is in our environment, in our case in environment def and our command. It will run this environment, activate your environment, and it will try to run your command manage par report. In our case, it might be, for instance, delete every 5 objects every day at the night. For instance, 9 p.m. You can delete these items or create the 5 items, and in other case it might be just create a report for today or for some every week. And for this task you can use these management commands, and it will work with your project and with your models. And here what we can do is just import our models and manipulate our models using our data, using our classes. So this example how can you configure management commands. So now we want to switch title to our next topic, which called to send a complex request to our database and to understand the main features and the complex requests using object relational mapper. Object relational mapper. In other words, we many times we can hear that we can have the ORM abbreviation in different ways. The first one, object relational mapping. Not mapper, just mapping. It says object relational mapping. It's just your SQL requests. For instance, select all from user table. It's an SQL request and SQL language, and it's called object relational mapping. So object relational mapper, it's a programming tool technique for manipulating with our database using your programming language. In our case, it's a Python. You can have this object relational mapper in any programming language, and this was created for working using only one language. If you are creating some application using Java or Python or other languages, to be comfortable to execute the interaction with database, object relational mapper was created. It's just a technique and ability to use our data using our languages that we use to. Database access optimization. So when we are getting data from the database, or when we are trying to add to our database some info, we have to care about the optimization of techniques. So let's look our lookups. We have many lookups in our Django ORM, object relational mapper, and let's see quickly each of them. Here we have the example for equal, exact, and iExact. The difference between them, in this iExact lookup you can use regular expressions. So project objects get ID exact 1, and project objects get ID equals to 1. They are the same thing. You have to understand that the first one, which will check for this value, it will convert it to the SQL. The field equals to 1 value. In our case, ID equals to 1. For instance, object filter not get, but the filter name exact equals to project 1, and the name equals to project 1. These are the same SQL requests, and it will get the same result. So this exact value, or this just the equation value, will be converted to this SQL request to our database. So not equal. In the SQL, it will be where not some field equals to some value. In our Django ORM, it's just exclude, or in other case, it might be using just a cube value. For instance, project objects exclude status equals to not finished. It will get all projects, select all from projects, where status not equals to not finished, and it will get the results. For instance, projects get exclude, get all projects which contains inside the tasks count less than 20. If we are saying the greater than 20, it will get the less than 20 because it's excluded, it's not equal. So last example, using the Q function from our Django ORM. Q functions, using Q function you can use a symbol tilde and it will convert to the other side. In our case, it will get the all projects which can contain the 20 tasks and more, which because we have equals here. And query, also using the Q function, which located in our models file. Filter creator ID equals to 1, status equals to finished. This is the first example for getting an end value. It will convert to the SQL request like this, where field equals to some value and second field equals to other value. Or you can option here using the Q function. Q creator equals to 1, and for instance, and status finished, not finished. In our case, it's a not finished. It's just an example that you can use. The Q function like this. In the first example, we are getting the create all projects of the creator 1, which are finished. In the second example, we are getting the all projects which are not finished. Or query set. It's also using the Q function. In our case, it's just an ampersand symbol here one time. In a programming language, we use it's 2 times. In our ORM, we have to set it only 1 time. It's the AND logic operator. And here we have OR logic operator. We are saying that we want to get all projects of creator 1 or all projects that are not finished. In the second example, we are getting the list of projects of creator 1 and 2 because we have OR here. Is and is not query, and is null. The first example, filter description equals to null, which means we are getting the all projects which contains no description. It's not an empty string, it's a null, not set it in the database. So the second example, description is null equals to true, which says is null. It means in the database we don't have any data. It's not an empty string. It's just like the first example, null equals to true. The last example, the filter description is null equals to false. Here we want to get all projects which contains some value in a description field. So if we have some value, even it's an empty string, it will get this project in this request. And the SQL will be like this: is null or is not null, using these commands. In, which is a very useful SQL request, it will looks like this, where some field in some array. In our case, it's just the same thing, but in our Python language, creator ID, we want to get the projects of creators 1, 2, and 3 with ID 1, 2, and 3, all projects, or status, all projects with the status new and in progress, and so on. Django like queries. It's just looking for searching functionality. To implement the search functionality, you can use this lookup, which is contains, which from the both side the person time, which contains some pattern in our string, or I contains, which can have like in our example regular expression, or starts with, ends with, which depends on from the function. The percent sign will be removed from the starting point and from the ending point. Django greater than and less than queries. Here we have greater than, here greater than or equal, less than, less than or equal. And here we have the many lookups for this value. It will convert it to this value. In some field, more than some value, or less than some value. If it's just equal, it will be exact value. For time manipulation, we can have many options which already implemented. Many lookups for range, for instance, for dates, in our case for year, for months, and for seconds, and so on. And created at, it's just a date time field in our case. It might be time field, it might be just the date field, but here we have date time field. That's why we are getting the year, hours, and minutes and seconds here. Order by and reverse. Order by, we already know that it will just order our results from, by default, it's ask ordering, it's increasing order. And if you want to decreasing order, you have to just set a minus sign before your field, and it will reverse your results with your field here. And here we have option to send multiple options here, for instance, name and task count and so on. And it will, if we have the projects with the same name, it will look the second value for ordering. And second value also, if it would be, if it's equal, it will be to the next value, next field. Limits to get the number of fields from the database. In our SQL, it will be, I have to change here, it will be order by, not order by, it will get the select all from projects and limit space, for instance, in our case it's 3. And offsets, limits offsets, also we have in SQL, looks like this, from projects from 6 till 10. In our case, all projects, the top 3 objects from the data. And aggregations, and how can we work with our own data and aggregate the data from the database. So here we have example. And in our Django ORM, we can have one function. We have one function. Let's check our database, and let's create. So open our create management file, and expensive prefix. Also, let's create 10 objects in our database, which price are different. And let's comment these lines. So Let's comment these lines and let's create another comment where we want to implement our values. In our case, let's self string out as to the output right. Let it be book objects aggregate with our, in our case, it might be this several types of from the model which are available here: average value, maximum value, minimum, and sum. Let's import them from Django DB models, import average, maximum value, minimum, or sum. Aggregate average value by price, average value by price, and try to run this command, book test dictionary. I have to convert it to the string. And here we go. So this aggregate function will get the arguments from these options: average, max, and minimum, and so on. Let's see the max value, min value, and sum value here. Let's do it again, and it will show the maximum value from our database. It will look to our all objects, and it will try to find the maximum value, minimum value, and average one, and sum one. So using these aggregations, you can have only one option. Pay attention to the name of the key. If it's a price field, it will automatically create the key called price 2 times underscore and average, max, min, and sum. Like this, you can have the options here. And if you want to set your own name instead of price average, you can have the max p, for instance, equals to this number. And if you run this, it will it will change the default value with your name here. You can have this option here. And for related objects also, in our case it's a tasks. It's just a count. It's just a counting the tasks. So annotate. The first function, it's an aggregate, which will get the one value for using our database. The another one, the second function, which called annotate, which called annotate, also works with our database, but the difference between these two functions: aggregate will return only one value, but annotate will return, it will loop by each object of our data, of our model, and it will try to add this annotation to our database. For instance, let's create in our database another value of after 1, and let's save it. So let's try to comment this one. Let's try to use our after model and have serializers here. So let's do it in our APIs. To save, let's do it in our APIs. So we are opening We are sending the book value here, book API here. And let's do the aggregation in our book view set. If you open the URLs, you have two APIs here. We're opening the book, and let's do it in price report. It will be the price report value. It's a price report data. Book price report, and after books we are sending the price report, and it will be the get request. It will be the get request. The details will be false, and let's do it in our serializer. Not serializer. Let's do it like get our test over here. But we can delete this one as we are working over here. Cannot use, but view sets, and data. Average price. Model aggregation. So let's check it. Average. Let's close and try to send a request. PK. So you have to remove. And so it will be the array of objects. One object will be like this, and do it for other options also. It will be the maximum value. Import them the minimum value from models import, and the sum value from models import. And let's try to send the request again. And here we have the results. And we're showing the max price. And we'll change the name of the key in our max price value. Max price will be like this. So it's our aggregation. Let's do same thing for our annotation. For annotation, it means we have books list here. In our case, we have also afters list. Let's do it for afters. For afters, we are just remove this one. For afters, if you open the model, one after and our books, and we have related name books. We want to add the number to our number of books for each after as a value. For instance, in these examples, it will add the counts of the tasks and the counts of the documents. We will do it for our books, number of books. For this, we have to add to our serializer number of books count. Let it be books count. Serializer integer field default equals to 0. Let's add this value to our options, and this value will be 0 for now. Books count default value is 0 for now, and in our views, when we are getting these values, we are adding annotation here. Let's do it in our, let's do it here for now. And the function called annotation, like in our example for aggregation. For aggregation, we can have only one value for all of our data. For annotation, you can have the annotate for each after. In our case, we want to get a books count. Books count equals to cont lookup, which is from the Django, which is now Django from models model, which will count the number of counts. In our case, we can have number of books here. Number of books here, and that's it. Let's start. And let's try to send request again, and it will count this number for you. It's using one function called annotate. The difference between these functions, aggregate will return only one value for all of our data in the database, but annotate will try to add this value for each of object of after. In our case, it will add this value as a virtual value, the number of books. For first, we have only 10 books, and for the second one, we don't have any books, that's why it's a 0. So this is an example for annotation. So combining the multiple aggregations. In our case, we can have the for instance, in our address we have rating. So let's do it. So the first value will be the books count, and second value for annotation, it's average rating. Let it be average for field rating. And average rating we want to add to our serializer. Also integer field, default value equals to 0, and it will be average rating, and we want to add over here in our model, in our views. Average rating will be aggregated using this value for each after. For now, it should be the 0, I think. It should be 0 because we don't have any data for you. So here we have, if we expect that the rating value will be the number of items, number of list of integers, and it will get the average value for our rating. But in our case, It's just one number, that's why it will not work for as expected. So let's continue. Join and aggregations. Join and aggregations. In our case, using these functions, aggregate and annotate, we can have these functions also. From our example here, we are setting just a price field here, and we can have aggregate the minimum price by the related objects of priority or related objects price and so on. And the same thing for the annotation. For instance, we can have the annotate the number of annotate for instance minimum price for book. For instance, min from books, we want to get the price. Book minimum price. It will get for using your books, I mean with for each author, it will get all books of this author and try to find the minimum price for this value. Let's do it for maximum also. It's a maximum, max price and min price. Let's add these values to our serializer. It's a minimum value, it's a maximum value, and we want to add over here. And if you restart and run this request again, and it will count the minimum and maximum value for all our books for these authors. Pay attention, we are sending the request to the authors list, and here we want to get the most expensive and most cheaper book, the price for books of this author, and this result will be get from the annotation, because we want to get for each our author we want to get this number. And for now it's just like this. For the second one we don't have any books, that's why it will return the 0, it will return the null, and so on. So in this example we are trying to combine using the different types of aggregations and joins. So this next example is group by. Group by is just a function called value. Group by, which means we have in our SQL, it's just a value field. If you set the value name, it will group by the value name. If we have the projects with the same name, it will group them for one value, and we can have annotate for each group. For instance, this first example, we get the all projects and group by name, and for each group it will annotate and count ID, which means it will show the number of projects in each group. So the second example for creators, it will get the group by creators, and it will show the number of values for creators. Let's do it in the second example, which is our price here. Let's try to do it over here. Objects. We want to use values. Values by ID, and annotate count by books. If you restart and send this request, it will return the two objects. The first object, for now we are just grouping by ID. It means we want to get for each author, we want to get all authors grouped by ID and annotate their number of books. That's why it will return the ID1, ID4, it's our authors say 1 and 4, and it will count the books for each one, and it will return this value. It's just a group by value, group by example for this example. So F functions. F functions, expressions are the same, very likely with our Q functions, which is also in the file models. It will get the virtually update our database. For instance, in the first example, project objects filter, we want to create the new field called members count less than. It will filter our projects where in each project we have members. It will get the members field, members count, which is less than the number of tasks in this project. So we are getting this number also from the table, and we are just immediately use this number for our filtering. And for this we can use the F function. Pay attention, this number, tasks count, we are getting from the database. And using this number, we are immediately filtering our data. And the power of our F function is here to do in the same request. We'll get this number and immediately we'll filter our data. And the second usage of F function is update the database without getting data from the database, getting objects from the database. In our case, we are updating the projects, all projects, members count, which is increased by 1. For instance, we want to update all of our price for all of our products by $10, for instance. And this function will be executed very quickly, and the speed of this function will be very high, because F function will not return these items from the database. If you have, for instance, 1,000 projects, it will just using SQL request, it will just add one and update in the SQL side these values. So here our next mini topic, it's a Django debug toolbar. If you click this button, it will open the library called Django debug toolbar. You can install this library in your projects. And for using the functionality of this library, to configure this, you have to install using this library. And in my environment, I already have this environment. That's why I will try to install, and I will try to start to configuring in our project. The first thing we have to add to our installed apps, and the second thing we can set a static URL, which is already in our settings and over here. And the second thing we have to add in our URLs. If we set debug tool equals to debug, settings equals to debug, we are importing our model for debugging. And let's change this to our URL. We don't have any R and this sign. And we are importing, so let's add this over here. So we are importing the prefix called debug for using debugs in our system. This debug tool will be as a prefix for each of our requests. So, and this next thing we have to import and set a middleware which will check our requests. We will add this middleware over here. And the last thing, we have to set the internal IPs. Internal IPs, it means we want to configure and allow to control debug tools to this IPs. In our case, it will be just localhost and this value. And if you restart your server after this configuration, after installation this library, if you restart your server and if you try to open your admin page, we already add the So if you open your project after configuring debug tool, here we have this icon. It will hide it from the usage. And if you click this button, it will show these options and these items over here. It will show the version of your Django and the times and the main things which we can control for each our request. So let's open our admin page, and how can we use this tool in our system? After configuring, for instance, we have several types of APIs. Let's see our first example. Let's let it be the books list. So we are trying to add this API in our browser. Localhost API core books. And it will open and return our results over here. And in the sidebar, in our debug toolbar, we have several options, and one of them is SQL, and the second one static files. The second static files, it's just a number of files which we download from the server. It's just a CSS files and JavaScript files. And if you click this menu, it's SQL, it will show all requests which we send to our database to get this result to this API. In our case, it's to get the list of books. The first thing is a built-in request which will compare your session ID, session time. It's not our request. The second one also, it's a Django request which will try to get a user from the database using the request ID. And our request over here, which is a core, we want to get a list of books and all the fields of the book table. So let's try to change this API. And this API over here, and when we are sending the list request, we are getting this value. And let's open this serializer. This serializer which is over here. And here I want to, in the serializer, I want to add after name, for instance. When I am listing our books, I want to say add the extra data which is the after name, and it's a char field. And how can we get from book after name? It's a after foreign key, and in after we have the name here. That's why here we have several options. One of them is source, to set the source attribute, which is called after.name, and it will get the name of the after for each book, and it have to return this value in our data from the serializer. I'm changing this serializer over here, and the model and the view set is the same as before. I'm just adding the new value, which is the author name. Let's send it again, this request, which returns the list of books. So in my notebook, there are different types of screen recorders and streaming. That's why it will work a little bit slowly. So we have here author name, and here we have name. Pay attention, we are getting the list of books here. List of books, but in serializer we are trying to get author's name. So we already know that books and authors are located in the different tables. In different tables, we have two tables, books and authors. But we are getting the name from the authors table when we are getting the list of books. And here we can see that the number of requests equals to 13. If you open, you can see that this Django session user with built-in request from the Django, and our request starts from here. And the first request to get all books, which are even correct, and the other requests, other 9 requests, or 10 requests in our case. 10 requests, which looks like this. For instance, our serializer, to get this value after name, for each book, it will try to get the author of this book. For instance, book 1, it will send the first request to our database to get the author with ID 1. It's the first request. It's the second request, which is with ID 1, and so on. It will send several times, many times, for each value, and it will show that the duplicated 10 items. So in our case, we know that the list of books don't have any data from the authors table. That's why it will send for each book, it will send a separate request to get the author of this book. As we have only one author, it will send 10 times to get the same value from the data. So this is a very bad usage of this functionality, this source functionality in our serializer, and we have only 10 items. If we improve, if we improve the number of by also 10 and try to send again, the number of requests we are adding in books. So let's do it again. Oh, we are deleting the previous one. Let's open our management command and comment this line and try to add the second one and the third one. And now we have 30 objects, and let's try to send it again and see our SQL requests here. It will work a little bit slowly because I have recorders here. And as you can see here, we have 33 requests for getting this value from the database. Only 30 items from the database. Why? Because we are sending the separate SQL request for each book to getting the authors of the current book. That's why it's not a correct one. And here we have the power of the two functions. The first one is select related, the second one is prefetch related. When we are saying the eager and lazy loading, what is the eager and lazy loading? So let's see our tables again, our models again. We have two models, authors and books. When we are trying to get a list of books, easy loading, by default, Django set it by default it's as an easy loading, which means when you get the list of books, it will get just after ID from the database, and then all other stuffs, all other fields for after, for photo, name, email, and rating will be located in the separate table. As we guess here, we have here after and books separate tables here. That's why by default Django configured as a lazy loader. Lazy loading means just to get fields from the one table. So in our case, in our serializer, we are trying to access to the field of the related object. In our case, for book, after is a related object. We are trying to get a name for after. That's why it's called eager loading. When we want to change this functionality to eager loading, to not send this request again and again, we have option called select related, which we'll use for the options one-to-one objects. In other words, if you have model and if you want to access to fields of the foreign key object, in our case it's after, you have to use a select related. Select related function will get just the name of your select related option. Open your views and let's implement in our function if self action equals to list. Only in that case I want to implement this. In other case it will return the all of our results. In that case, if it's a list, just like in our example, this value, if it's a list, I want to use a select related function, and the arguments here, it might be multiple arguments. One of them, in our case, it's after. I'm sending that I want to get all books, and immediately in the same result I want to get the afters also. Afters for each book. So this function says about this. If we have another option, if we have publisher here, for instance, publisher foreign key here, and we can send publisher also here. Publisher, and it will get authors and publishers of our books. So after setting this value, let's restart our server and try to send this request again. Pay attention, here we have 16 milliseconds and 33 SQL requests. If we send it again, SQL shows that we have only 3 requests and the 3 milliseconds here. If you open, it's the 2 types of requests from the Django and 1 option and 1 request which will get the all data for what we need. And after adding this select related after, this serializer will not send the separate requests to the server because we already get this request from the first query. So if you open, it's all data from the book table and all data from the afters table using the join, inner join. In our case, inner join with after equals to core ID, core afters ID and book ID. So using this inner join, we'll get these results using only 1 request. And this is a very notable optimization for this API, because in the previous version we had 16 milliseconds and 33. If we have 1 million of objects in our database, you can calculate these numbers, and it's a very bad example to implement this. This is our select related field. It's a SQL join. As you can see here, it will send the SQL join, inner join in our case, and get the results. So let's use a prefetch related here. Let's use prefetch related, and as you can see here, set of objects. When we are getting the set of objects from the database, we have to use a prefetch related. That's why I will implement this prefetch related for our afters, because each after has their books here. So that's why I want to implement it for this API with our afters here. We have afters API here, which will return the list of afters. And let's open it in our browser. And if you open the SQL request, it will show the first two from the Django, and the second one selects and count minimum and maximum. As you remember, in our views, we are adding this annotation, and these annotations looks like this. It will count, and as a name, what we are sending as an attribute here, it will convert it to as a S in SQL language, and it will joins and group by value. So let's comment this request over here, and we'll set afters objects all, not annotate, it's all, and same as in our books, let's implement it using only for list action. Return after objects all, for other case also the objects all. So when we are getting list of objects, list of afters, like in our example, so it will return, it will start. List of afters here. I want to add to our serializer. Let's copy this line from the book, and I want to, in our serializer, I want to add new field called books. If you add this field to list of this field from the meta class, and if you try to send this request, it will return by default as a related, it will return the IDs of our books for each after. For instance, after 0 currently has 30 books. And as you can see here, we have 7 options, 7 requests for now. It's the first one for after 1, and the second one for after 4, and to get the list of books, and limit for, in our case, it's 1,000 items. So let's do it like not only integers, but objects. In our case, book short serializer, and we are saying that we have many options, many arguments here, and they are using only for read only. And after starting our server, let's send it again, and pay attention, I have 5 requests here. So we have 5 requests here because the first option for getting the first option getting for list of afters, the second one, and the third one for getting books for each after. So if we are creating, let's open this option, and we don't have any management for creating, for creating afters. Let's create over here, let's comment this one, and let's create 10 afters. Oh, we already have over here, that's why we can comment these lines. and just call the create after function for total value. And let's create 20 afters. Let's check it in our database. If you open afters, we have afters. In our case, we have 22 afters. Let's create another 10, and for instance also 20. We have 50 afters, and send it request again. Which will return the list of afters. And here we go. We are sending the request to get a list of afters, but for each after we want to get also books of each after. If you see the SQL request number of queries, we have 53 requests. Why? Because the first two from Django, the second one for getting the list of afters, and the other 50, how many we have? 52 requests for getting the books for each after. As you can see here, after 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on until the 54. For each after we are trying to get a list of books, and in our serializer we added this value, and this value is an array. We have many options for one after. And this is a very bad example, and it takes 22 milliseconds. And in such cases, you have to use a prefetch related when we have the set of objects for getting from the database. So let's do it in this case. So prefetch related, and here we have to set the name of the related object. In our after, if you open the model and the foreign key, we have option books. So that's why I'm sending here books. And each after will have their own books in their objects. And this will work for prefetch related. And if we send it again, after adding this one function, if we send it again, we have 55 requests, and it will change it to the 4 requests, and it takes only 4 milliseconds. And if you see the request, it will just send 2 queries to our database. The first one to get a list of afters, and the second one for getting all books for each after. As you can see here, it uses in function, in query in SQL. In inquiry, it will just send a list of our IDs for our afters, and using this one SQL request, it will get all books from the books table using the one SQL request, and it will be more speedily and the more correct version of getting the data. So that's why this value is very important, and you have to understand what we are doing here. So the difference between them, when we have only one object, as like in our book, when we want to get the value of the after, we have to use the selector related. If we are trying to get a list of objects for some model, we have to use a prefetch related. Why it's a SQL join? Because as you can see here, when we get the list of books, if you open the SQL request, it will send a join, inner join using SQL to get the related object from the database. But in our afters case, it's a first case, it's a SQL join. In our prefetch related, in the afters case, if you can see here, it will send only 4 items, even we have the million of afters in our database. It will send only 4 queries if we have in our database, for instance, a million of objects and so on. So it will send a separate request, the first one for getting the list of afters, the second one for getting all the books for our afters. So it will send a separate request but it will join our results, these results using Python. That's why it implemented in our prefetch related function, and it will join this data to us, and it will connect this to request results and set as a one result from the server. So that's why it says that the Python join. It's a SQL join, it's a Python join, because it sent to request to our server. And these two options are very important, and you have to understand and you have to use in your projects. And you can check this time for sending the SQL request, number of requests, using the debug tool, which we already shown here. So if you have questions, you can collect all questions and send it to my email or in Telegram group, and I will try to answer to your questions. So for now, we can stop our lecture. It was our last lecture for this course. In the next lesson, you have to show your laboratory works and your project with this all functionality and all the